because that would allow you to then receive the funds and with that, create something which you're passionate about.
Welcome to this segment of the Careers podcast. So with me today I have Christabel from the Arts Council. So Christabel, could you introduce yourself a bit?
Yes, sure. I'm Christabel. I am the Education Development Associate at Arts Council Malta. It's a big title, but basically what I do is I manage all the education-related activities and the strategy. And also, when it comes to training and development, we have numerous funds which fall under the education remit, but we also initiate some initiatives with other organizations. We have various cross-sector collaborations like Agencia Zazah. We have collaborations with the Malta Council for Science and Technology, for example, where it allows us to increase accessibility to arts education and education in the arts, and also provide more opportunities for people to become involved in the arts and seek ways how to make that as their professional activity as well.
Okay, so the Arts Council has quite a number of roles, maybe more than some people know it for. If right now, obviously this is aimed at university students, maybe in Malta we still have a bit of a perception that a career in the arts is something a bit lucrative, a bit difficult to tap into. But what are you seeing sort of, maybe not right now in the current COVID climate, but in general, what do you see as career pathways that students tend to take and enter the arts industry in Malta?
Yes. So Arts Council, its main remit is that of providing funding for the arts organizations and individual. But as I said, also there's the important aspect of strategy. So for us to create a direction for the culture sector in Malta and the culture and creative industries. When it comes to people starting a career in the arts, I meet a lot of youths in our programs who see arts as something they can do part-time or something they really love, but they won't study it full-time, for example. We have a program with young artists, the Young Artist Development Program, where we find artists just about they turn 18 and we mentor them for an 18-month program. We do the same with 18 to 25 then. But particularly the young ones, what we see is that they're very passionate about the arts. They would love for that to be their career, but perhaps because of social pressures, because of their family, they still, for example, study something different. What Arts Council is trying hard to do is facilitate the pathways for a career. So as I said, we do mentoring programs, and it's something which we will invest more in the upcoming strategy. We have programs which are very targeted to specific needs, for example, art and activism, and how can you make that as your activity. When it comes to our mentoring programs, for example, we focus a lot on how to do a performance reel, for example, how do you present yourself to an audition, encourage students also to take up auditions with full-time academies abroad, also to study on a full-time locally, and also invest their energy in a way in the culture and creative endeavors.
So you mentioned that sort of you have a program that starts roughly around the age of 18. Now, at least I remember when I was at school, when we were started getting these talks about your career, your potential career, maybe even the Maltese system, that those talks start at the age of probably around 12. Do you do any programs that start to target students from that age? Because most of the time in schools, they tend to sort of leave out the creative industry and the arts industry.
Yes, and it's something which we saw even more recently with the COVID pandemic. maybe the arts aren't given as much importance as the other curricular and the testable subjects, the core subjects. So far we have programs targeting younger students, also from the age of 8. So we go quite young, but they are mostly for students who are already interested in the arts and they would like to invest in training opportunities abroad or locally as well. We have the Young Talent Fund, for example, where people can apply either for mentorship, for job shadowing experiences, or also for courses, short courses abroad or locally as well. However, I think, yes, there's more to be done. The mentality is shifting in a way. Even in my time working at Arts Council, I'm already seeing a difference, especially from the parents aspect. They tend to push their children more towards the arts nowadays than before. However, I think it's essential, especially in the current climate and the very dynamic future we're facing, that all students are exposed to creativity, because to work in the arts, it's not just being a dancer, a singer, or a performer. You can do many things. You can be a visual artist who works in a gaming company, you can work in an IT company, but also use creativity, which will give you an edge as well. So yes, as Arts Council, we promote as much as possible taking up the arts in any way or form from a very young age. As I said, we have programs, and even more in the upcoming strategy, we'll invest for students, for artists to grow into a career. So it's quite daunting as well to start a career in the arts. How would you start? I was there as well.
In fact, that was my next question for you. So if a person realizes maybe at that age, maybe in their mid to late teens, maybe even some people realize later on in life, in their 20s, for example. So what are the steps you can take to sort of, if you really want to try, give it a shot within the arts industry?
I would say first, like, invest your time and energy into growing as well, into developing. So take up short courses, do job experiences abroad. We've had a case where he applied for the professional grant and he was doing a job shadowing abroad, and now he works full time as quite a managerial role in that company. So take risks as well, you know, put yourself out there. This is something I faced as well. Maybe you wouldn't know what path is the best way to go. So and creative entrepreneur as well, because we're saying that you're making the arts as your professional activity, can take various forms. It can be working within the sector, having your own company, for example. It can be being a self-employed in the sector, which is the most common locally. You can work in the public sector, however those roles are also quite limited. You can work in actually performing or managing cultural management, which I believe is a sector which needs to grow locally as well. When we look at cultural management and management of events, for example, I believe that is a sector which will grow quite consistently in the coming years. You can also work as freelance and on a project-by-project basis. So it doesn't have to be your one and only professional activity. You can also make a career as a freelancer, as a part-time artist, or even project-based. The most important thing is that you have a direction as well. So who are you? What do you want to do? What do you want to get out of it? Something which maybe the artists lack, creatives lack more than other entrepreneurs. Because I don't know, we kind of scared or don't want to look.
That's certainty, the certainty and the direction. In fact, you touched upon the idea of going abroad. This is maybe a hotly debated topic amongst the creative and arts industry in general in Malta. Sort of, there are some people you will find who will tell you, listen, if you want a creative career, maybe Malta isn't the place to do it. But we've seen, on the other hand, we've seen plenty of creatives who managed to make a very, very good career in Malta and make themselves well known because at the end of the day, because they're good at what they do and they weren't deterred by such things. What's your take on that?
I would say it really depends on what you want to do and what your art is. For example, I see many going abroad when it comes to dance and classical dance, which is something which in Malta is very, very limited. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I mean, again, this depends on your outlook as well and what you prioritize in a way as well. Some areas abroad are maybe more developed. I don't know, when it comes to, for example, community arts, when it comes to dance, as I mentioned. But we've seen also the same artists doing projects locally. So it can also be both. You don't have to choose one or the other. What I would say is important, which going abroad comes into it, is exposing yourself to as many opportunities as possible, creating your networks and having contacts. When it comes to artists, also freelance artists and them making a living out of their art, I think having contacts and networking, knowing the right people to talk to, knowing how to approach, also for sponsorships, but also for cross collaborations. Now, something we'll focus on a lot in the upcoming strategy is for these collaborations between different sectors. The business element and the arts can collaborate, and they can both parties can take something out of it. So it's not just a monetary exchange of sponsoring an event. Let's create an environment where the arts is growing in tandem with other sectors.
So another point that we sort of already almost brushed upon a bit is how people value the arts in Malta. So we've seen throughout the pandemic that people have consumed art arguably more than ever because they've had a lot more time on their hands and they've realized that art, in whatever form it takes, we think sometimes of art as well a bit too narrow of an approach. So art is also the series you watch at home with your friends and your family. It's the music you consume every day. We've seen a lot more consumption of this during the pandemic. Do you think that that's also led to people in Malta valuing the arts more? Because this is something you hear a lot, that a lot of people expect you to do things for free if you're an artist in Malta, for example, or for relatively lower income than maybe what you see overseas. Do you think that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen an increase in the value of the arts in Malta?
I think, as you said, more people consumed it in Malta and even internationally. However, I remember reading a survey where people thought the artists were one of the least important jobs in the current time. So at the same time, maybe it's a lack of awareness that what we're consuming online and what we're listening to is actually made by artists who are making a living through that as well. And this is, again, something which we'll focus on and in a way make sure that the status of the artist is raised. That, you know, they are professionals like any other professional which you go to for a service. If you're employing an artist, they should be paid, and they should be paid fairly and for the service they are doing. They also invest a lot of time in their activity, and this maybe is another a bit of sore point for the creative industries. Maybe out there what you see is the final product. I don't know, I say it's a 3-minute music. However, there's a lot of hours
No one
put in
understands
that.
all of the hours that go into creating a piece of art. And I think less people then understand how many hours go into learning the craft in the first place.
Exactly.
There is the concept of talent, and I think it is important to nurture talent into something viable, but talent alone will not get you through into a career just based on talent. You need to put in the hard work regardless of whether you have maybe a more natural inclination to it or you don't. I think I like to believe personally that anyone can be an artist if that's what they're passionate about and they're willing to put in the hard work to learn and to better themselves. I think you're more likely to be able to make it. Like in any industry, if you've got the passion for it, it makes it easier because it's not like you're doing it against your will. You're doing it because it's what you love to do. And I think that's something artists have in common. I don't think anyone becomes an artist if they're not into the arts. You do it because you're passionate about it. I think it's one of the industries where you most see that passion and they're doing it for the art itself.
Exactly, and maybe sometimes that's why we're still here in 2021 lobbying for the status of the artist, because an artist is passionate. He would do work just to put work out there. However, it's important to start treating that as a profession as well. As you said, anyone can become an artist if they're passionate and they put the work. And a creative entrepreneur is finding that passion and seeing ways how you can offer to the public, which is of value to them, that they also you profit out of that exchange. It's about creating a brand for yourself. It's about finding ways how to adapt as well. I know before I mentioned having a business plan. Maybe this is something which so far artists in their training they haven't learned, but it's also important. It's an important life skill in a way, so it should be learned anyhow, even in formal education, I believe. But even in training to become an artist, you should start, even if it's uncomfortable for you. Maybe if you're a creative, you might not be inclined towards business plan and counting and numbers.
Marketing, accounts.
Exactly. However, it's important that at least you understand it and that you understand your limitations as well. So if you need to outsource some sort of activity, if you need, I don't know, even to apply for public funding, if you need to outsource someone to write your application, do it if that is your limitation, because that would allow you to then receive the funds and with that, create something which you're passionate about and you can spend your time and invest in.
I think for what you're saying as well, even though some people think that being a creative means that 100% of your time, if it's your full-time job, is actually being a creative. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. Being a creative entrepreneur, if you're running your own business, be it if it's freelance or you're also employing other people, you've got to worry about all the other aspects of running a business, which is making sure all the finances are in order, marketing your service. You need to have, like you said, a business plan. You need to be able to find where the niche is in the market and offer value to solve a problem at the end of the day, and that's how you can get paid for your work. On that note of sort of the paying and not paying, I think another point is that some artists undervalue their own work, because at the end of the day, to work for free, no one is forced. You're offered and you accept to do it for free as an artist.
Yes, unfortunately, this is again something the industry itself needs to come together, and one of the good things that came out of this period, I think, is that the industry really came together. Now we even have an association which lobbies for the rights of artists as well, which was needed to also work in tandem with the national agency as well. But it's important that the industry literally comes together and values its art, value their product. There's a lot of work when you quantify what goes into a project. There's a lot of work and hours and sweat and tears that goes into that product. And before I mentioned, you need to understand yourself as well and in what you would like to do. So if preparing a business plan, doing the accounts, marketing is really something you don't want to even come close to. You can then work, as we said, by project by project basis. You can work as a freelance, but it's important you know what you would like to do. Maybe you'd like to work with others. Maybe you prefer working on your own. Although I as well, I would highlight the importance of collaborations, especially when you're an entrepreneur, when you have a business. So it's important as well to think beyond what we traditionally think of arts and creativity. So the arts can, as I said, offer a service in different industries. They can offer a service in health, for example, in the health industry. Why not? If you identify something you're passionate about and you can dedicate your time, I believe that there is a potential also in that. And the creative industries are growing as a sector. I mean, they're one of the highest growing sectors locally as well. Also, coincidentally, in Malta, the employees in the sector tend to be younger. So we see a lot of people in their 20s, 30s who are working as freelancer, working as self-employed in the sector, which our average is lower than the rest of the EU. So I think there we can see, again, a potential that locally we have the drive to literally
Things are starting to change for the better, maybe.
Exactly, and as an agency, I think we have the responsibility to make sure that we support that and we push it forward. As students, it's hard sometimes to find your feet, and especially when you need to do things, as we said, which are the jargon and domain of something, an area which is not yours. So we'll also be investing in that training and development in that way. Although now I also encourage artists to even do it themselves, look at research, do your own research.
Resources are not limited in 2021. Online, there's so much you can learn. And even though it may seem daunting at first, I think it's important that they don't just give up because they see things that are maybe outside of their normal field. Step out of your comfort zone. Like you said, I think you mentioned it before, take risks.
Yes.
And the worst thing I like to say that can go wrong is you learn. The worst case scenario is not a mistake, but a mistake is something you can learn from. So the worst case scenario is a learning opportunity.
Exactly.
And I think that's the gist of it, especially again, maybe it's not so much of a linear career path. Maybe
yes,
things don't go maybe in such a straight line where you go to secondary school, sixth form, university, job, progress in that job, the end. It's a lot less linear in the arts.
Yes, it's a lot less linear. People can be active in the arts and study something completely different, and they can come from different areas, which is also the nice thing about the creative and cultural industries, There's a lot of perspectives as well. So yeah.
Okay, I'd like to grab another point, but we're running quite a bit out of time. So thank you very much, first of all, for joining us today. I think
Thank you.
if the people are watching who are maybe potential creators, maybe already in the creative industry, there's something in this for everyone to sort of take out and think about a bit, especially when we talked about the idea of developing your skills a bit outside maybe, and I think debunking a few of the myths around the industry and water. So again, thank you very, very much. And that concludes this segment of the Careers Podcast. Thank you.